Good evening. Welcome to Authentic Expressions. My name is Mige Klim. Today's video live stream is on My Mistakes Do Not Define Me, Tools to Build Resiliency. Welcome again, and we are grateful to have Laurel Ridge sponsor this program. So Laurel Ridge is a behavioral health program that offers compassionate care for every stage of life. It provides personalized treatment for all populations. Their interest is to help you into your journey to wellness. There are services for children, adolescents, adults, military dependents, active duty service members, veterans, and first responders. They offer inpatient services, outpatient services, substance abuse treatment, residential treatment. Call 210-491-3591 for no-cost assessment. Laurel Ridge is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Their mission is to save lives, heal families, create hope. All right, today's topic is My Mistakes Do Not Define Me, Tools to Build Resiliency. All right, I see some familiar faces, some familiar names. Welcome. Glad you are here. Be sure to pose your questions. This is what gets us going. Victoria, welcome. Be sure to pose a question. Santos, Linda. All right. Cheryl, welcome. EK. All right. Christine and Bridget. So glad you're here. Please pose your questions on how to work on forgiving ourselves, being compassionate with ourselves when we encounter mistakes, how to use our mistakes as stepping stones to build resiliency. So while you are typing your questions, I am going to read you a quote by Eleanor Roosevelt. You gain strength, courage, and confidence by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face. So look fear in the face. All right, Santos, thank you. There are different types of resiliency. How can I strengthen and sustain emotional resiliency? What an awesome question. Wow. How can I strengthen, and sustain emotional resiliency? All right. The first thought that comes to my mind is whenever you encounter a challenge, do you see it as a experience that is going to defeat you, or is it going to be an experience that is going to strengthen you? Many times, if you start to think of, okay, this is showing up in my life, what is the lesson to learn? What is the tool in which I want to take away from this lesson? People show up in our lives to help us grow. People show up in our lives, while they may be annoying or they may be challenging. But how can you use that experience to grow you, to strengthen you, and to build new skills, additional skills to handle your growth point? So you may have a limited tool set, or you may have a good repertoire of tool set, but many times think about how you want to expand the tool set so that you can build on other skills and build on resiliency skills. So you can be grateful for the learning opportunity, or you can complain about the learning opportunity. And what you do will also be what your children do. Because if they see you complain, whine, and moan and groan, they too will do the same thing. But if you see that as, this is my opportunity to strengthen myself. So with every lesson, what can you strengthen? What is one more thing you can do? So it's not the big changes, it's the one little tiny thing that you keep doing consistently that will help strengthen, sustain your emotional resiliency. Okay, Christine says, how can you give yourself the understanding and acceptance of your past mistakes? What are some helpful tools? What a great question. So, how can you give yourself understanding acceptance of your past mistakes? So, mistakes do not define us. Again, if you can look at mistakes as look at some of the things that challenge you as your stepping stone to your next growth level. Many times you hold yourself um, accountable and you won't forgive yourself, and you keep beating yourself up for the minor infractions that you do. It is also important that whenever you feel like you've made a mistake, allow yourself to talk about it, walk through it with a friend, somebody who cares about you, and who is interested in your growth. Talk through it, admit to what you have done, and also talk about the things that you were unprepared for. How did you set yourself up? Was this mistake a repeated offense, or was it a mistake that is one time, that's new? So it's important to dissect it, peel it apart, peel it back further. And you may want to look at, okay, this repeated behavior is very similar to whose behavior. And sometimes you may say, okay, it's a mistake. But let's say you are sharp tongued, or let's say you are very, you get, you get impatient and you strike back easily. So don't just beat yourself up for the mistake, but look at who else did you learn that from. So, how were you groomed for that mistake? So look at the historical roots of this mistake, and then look at the emotions that drive you to repeatedly do the same thing. And as you dissect it, look at how these emotions that's always been burping within you, how can you address these emotions, talk it through, and look at the emotions that drive the behavior and the behavior that you do not like. So once you understand the emotions, understand the roots of it, it may be easier to change it rather than go, I want to change this, I want to stop being this. So think about the history and understanding it. That will give you more insight. All right, Victoria has a question. So let's continue to post your questions. For those who have signed in, how can I help my daughter see that she is not defined by her mistakes? Shouldn't I encourage her to just lead by example? Should I encourage her or just lead by example? Very good question. Wow. Whenever, I don't know what age your daughter is, but as a parent, it's important to understand the struggles. Okay, she's 22. It's important to understand the struggles our children, young or old, what they go through. So it is important to listen to them, to understand it. Like I said last week, don't listen to advice, don't listen to lecture. But when you come in with a listening ear, when you give them an opportunity to talk through their struggles, they're more likely to be able to sort it out. Many times, as we unravel, as we sort things out through words, the pieces become clearer because we catch ourselves. Oh, I see myself doing this again. And when you give your children the gift of listening, it is a also a way to help them change. Many times they sort things out quicker when you're there to hear. Because if we go in there to lecture and try to change them and try to correct them, then they're having to deal with two things, their issue and then their annoyance with you. So as parents, it's so easy to want to lecture and jump the gun and try to advise them to prevent them from falling. But you may prevent them, but you also sever that relationship with them. So give yourself a break and try to use conversations with your children as opportunities to deepen the relationship, not necessarily solve their problem or prevent them from making mistakes. As a parent, it is easy to want to sometimes be a helicopter mom or dad and prevent their mistakes. See that their mistakes, see that as opportunity of growth, and if you don't make a big deal out of those mistakes, and you help them see that as a learning opportunity, that would also help them have a forgiving attitude about the things they struggle with. All right, welcome, Carolyn. All right, how do you stop shrinking to to a fifth to a 5-year old when we make a okay, maybe let's stop. Okay, let me reread it. How can we stop shrinking to a 5-year old when we make a mistake? All right, maybe I have misunderstood your question. How do we stop shrinking to a 5-year old when we make a mistake? As parents, we are human, and it's also important to share with children that we do make mistakes. We are human and we are subject to many mistakes. So when you recognize that a mistake has been made, or when you recognize that not just your mistake, but sometimes the mistake we make is that we don't listen, or we jump in too quickly, or we prevented them from experiencing the issue. So it's important to apologize for your behavior, not necessarily at what you did to bark. So say, I wish I had listened more when you told me what was going on rather than advise more. So children appreciate it when they see parents become human, when they see parents show their vulnerable side, because that helps them learn more. Because whatever you do, and they see you do it in very human ways, it also helps them be more forgiving of yourself, of themselves. So when you make a mistake, the goal is to talk about it, not sweep it under the carpet, not brush it aside, not discount it or ignore it. As early as possible, have a conversation. Let's say you were impatient. So say, whenever you see the person next and whenever you calm down, say, I came across as too strong, I came across as too impatient and too fast to jump to conclusions. So I'm sorry about that. How can I hear you differently? How can we converse differently? So it's important to not just think about the topic, but think about how you came across, because then that will give you an opportunity to do it differently when you have a conversation with your son or daughter, your spouse, your friend, a church member. So look at the big picture, the process in which you delivered, and not just what you said. As I said, the goal is to always put things on the table. If unclear, put it on the table. Because if you have challenges and struggles, very likely that other people who were in that circle also struggle with it. So be the first to bring it up rather than sweep it under the carpet. All right. Thank you, Carolyn. What a great question. So Alice, very nice. I like the questions that keep coming up, showing up. So Alice says, is it safe to encourage children to shake off the mistake and move on once they have faced their mistake, instead of continually reminding them of their mistake? Yes, yes. The more you highlight the mistakes, the more it makes it harder for them to be open with you. So if you can also let go of your own mistakes and they see that you talk about it, talk through it, and let go, then they will follow what you do. But if you keep reminding and beat them, you know, beat them up every time they make a mistake or similar mistakes, then they will work very hard to avoid you. And then parents often go, I wonder why my children avoid me. I wonder why my children stay locked up in that room. Because children and teens, after a while, they're very sensitive. So they find out that these are the people I can go to, these are the people I want to stay away from. So you want to create an environment where you are the source where they can come to rather than they can want to avoid you. So whenever you see mistakes and then you're able to talk through it, hear them out, feel free to share your own mistakes when you struggled at their age. Feel free to make fun of some of the things that you did that was, you know, regrets that you struggle with. Because children love to hear our human actions because they value that, because many times they see parents as invincible, as unbreakable. But when you share their human side, they get to appreciate it and they value that. So the more human you're with your children, it only serves to strengthen your relationship with them. Okay, Marna, what the question is, what can you do to work on your self-esteem for past mistakes? What a great question. So, what can you do to work on your self-esteem for past mistakes? Many times as humans, we are so good at beating ourselves up for minor infractions. We mull over it, we think about it, we carry it on for 10 years, and we have a hard time forgiving ourselves. And we constantly remind ourselves of, what you did last year, what you did 5 years ago. So, like I said earlier, to improve your self esteem, it's important to clear the clutter in your headspace. Many times people go, I'm too embarrassed to share about it. But whatever you don't share tends to grow in your headspace. The more you pile up the little infractions, it becomes a big knot. It becomes a big ball of fire. And then you become more hyper vigilant, you become more focused, you become more obsessed about your mistakes, be it impatience or your barkiness or your negativity, because the more you talk about it and the more you clean out your headspace, then it helps decrease the size of the mistake. And the more you decrease it, the more you have room to grow your creative side, to grow your self-nurturing side, to grow your compassionate side. The more you have self-compassion, self-nurturing, then self-esteem is more likely to show up stronger. So don't just work on self-esteem. Also think about what you can work on that is about cleaning up the clutter. The more clutter you clean out, there's more room for growth, for humanness, for laughing at yourself, for enjoying you for who you are, rather than holding yourself into accountable for every little infraction. All right, Bridget, what does healing look like when someone starts to see themselves at work in progress instead of a problem to fix? Okay, great question. So let me review it again. What does healing look like when someone starts to see themselves as in progress instead of a problem to fix? Again, very good question. Yes, I like the concept of progress. I like the concept of learning. I like the concept of giving yourself room to grow. So the more you can see yourself as, I want to learn, I want to enjoy my humanness. So if you state your life and your challenges in these positive terms, then each infraction is not magnified, is not viewed microscopically. So it is so important that you focus on the little changes, not the big sweeping changes. Many times we want miraculous changes, but changes that come in small form, and you look at that and you give yourself room to acknowledge the small changes, then every mistake that you see, then you can look at it. Hey, last week I made an effort to do this. Last week I really made an effort um, to use a different energy to talk to my mother, to use a different energy to talk to my friend. I used a more inquisitive energy to converse with people rather than irritated energy. So if you can change and think of, instead of irritation, you want to introduce what? The more you try to introduce different energies, then you are more likely to focus on your progress rather than, all the things that's piled up on your plate. So whenever there's issue, let's say you come across as too strong in your delivery, you come across as negative in your delivery. So don't just beat yourself up for being negative or being abrupt or up direct. So think, I want to use different energies. I want to be more, instead of being more upfront, I want to be more creative in how I approach people. I want to be more gentle. I want to be more curious. I want to be more inquisitive. So if you include those other concepts, then you have different things to tap into rather than just, I don't want to be harsh. Whenever you make mistakes, think of what you want to tweak. So introduce other things of what you want to be, then you're more likely to use those other tools. So don't just focus on using a hammer in your communication. Bring in different tool set like a screwdriver, a plier, and this and that. So the more tool sets you have, like you want to be curious, you want to be inquisitive, you want to be attentive, you want to be just a listener, then you're more likely to do those if you bring in other tool sets. All right. Carolyn has a message. So these are awesome questions. I love your questions. All right, let's have more questions. While you are typing your question in the chat area, I am going to read to you a quote by Sharon Salzberg. She says, resilience is based on compassion for ourselves as well as compassion for others. So that adds to our resiliency. Self-compassion, others' compassion. Okay, what other questions do you have related to forgiving ourselves of our mistakes? You have a bunch of great questions. I love these questions. All right, anyone else? Question. All right, Linda. I'm looking at the questions, make sure I've got everything covered. All right. So talk about something that you have done to forgive yourself. We all forgive ourselves. What are some things that you do to let go? So that's what I'm thinking. What can you do to let go rather than harp and highlight your mistakes? What have been things that you have done to let go? Anyone, do type it in the chat area. I would love to hear how you have let go and move on. All right, Carolyn has a question. How do you help adult children through challenges of substance abuse introduced from their parents? Oh, wow, yes. They learn many of the behaviors from their parents for the unhealthy coping. Yes, children learn by observation. So many times their coping is like that of the adult. So it's important to introduce the concept of alternative coping. So when under the gun, when under fire, while you may do drugs, what else might you be also able to do? You might be able to seek out a friend. You might be able to talk things out. You might be able to do things that are stress relieving. You might be able to journal. You might be able to call your sponsor. So help them come up with a good variety of different coping, because that will help them disconnect with just one line of thinking. And the one line of thinking is that, I always do this because it's convenient. So in change, don't look for convenience, but look for effort. What can I do that is going to help me change, like add an alternative response? In any change that is about moving forward, think of adding one little response consistently, and that will help you move towards change. Great question. All right, I appreciate each of your participation. I love your questions. Okay, so Christine has, my faith is helping me let go. Thank you. I can't count on anyone to help me if I don't help myself. Linda, sometimes I make fun of myself to lessen my mistakes, my sting of mistakes. Sometimes I tell others I am sorry. Wow, great, great, great. These are awesome tools. Thank you so much for your participation. Victoria goes, I stop holding on to the guilt someone else put on me by walking away and giving myself room to grow. I love these various coping of letting go. All right, I am going to close with a quote by Oprah. She says, turn your wounds into wisdom. And that's what a lot of you have done, are doing. Continue to turn your wounds into ways that will help strengthen your core, strengthen your resiliency, and strengthen your fortitude. Thank you for joining me this evening. So next week, our focus is on My Voice Matters, teaching teens to navigate peer pressure and conflict. So love to hear your questions. So be sure to bring a friend, bring a question. So before we close, I want to thank Laurel Ridge for sponsoring this program. Laurel Ridge is a behavioral health program that offers compassionate care, and they provide a variety of services for children, adolescents, adult military dependents, military active duty members, service members, first responders, and veterans. Call 210-491-3591 for no-cost assessment. Again, their mission is to save lives, heal families, create hope. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.